Hey everyone, it's Elsie here from the customer care team. In this video, we're looking at the first step of a three-step process. We're going to be looking at how to create a report with some filters, and I'll just chat a little bit about kind of how that works in Keela. So there's two places in Keela that you can create, that you can export transactions from. The first is in fundraising from the transactions tab here. And this is a great place to export from if you're only wanting to just do a really quick list, not save it for later. You don't need to come back to it or refer to it later on. You just want to do it real quick. So perhaps I'd come in here and I would type date. I would select date received and I'd look at is relatively this year, filter, and then I'd click this export button here, this little cloud, and I'd be done. So great option there, a couple of clicks. But if I wanted to look back on this list later on, perhaps this is something I want to refer to later, I think a report is a better option then, because when you flick away from the fundraising tab and then come back, it resets itself so that you can quickly filter on something else next time. So it's designed to be used as a one-stop kind of shop thing, whereas a one use only, single use reporting, I suppose. Whereas if you go to the reports, here you can save your reports and come back to them later and they'll be automatically updating. So if you're wanting to look at this again, I recommend a report. Otherwise, fundraising tab's completely fine if you're just wanting to do it really quickly. But either way, the filters that you apply and the way that it's exported will be exactly the same. So I'll do reports because there's a couple of more steps involved. Click a create report, go to transactions and select all donations here. Then I'll jump through to the data tab. I can see I've got 1,009 donations logged in my account. If I jump through to the data tab, I'll be able to see those as well. And I'm just going to apply some filters to reduce that down. So let's say, for example, I'm wanting to look at a couple of different things. I'm wanting to look at donations that were received, total donations received per contact from last year. So I can go is relatively last year, or if I wanted to, I could go is between, and then I could just choose my date. So let's say is between January 1st, 2019, and then if I go December 31st, 2019. So this could be my first list, and I'll go ahead and save that. All donations from 2019. I can go back, I can create another one. I've already created a couple in here, all donations, but I'll just do it again just in case. I figure it might help. But we'll go transactions, all donations, and this time I'm going to go to the data tab, filter it down by date received, and we'll look at is relatively this year. We'll save that. All donations 2020. You could do it for month if you like. So we could create one, or transactions. I could go all transactions instead of all donations. And I could filter it from here if I like. I could just go date received is last month, and then perhaps I could filter by a tag. I only want to see the contacts who are part of my major donor tag. I can add those filters as well. So I don't have anyone in my major donor tag, so maybe that's not a filter that'll work for me, but you'll find all the filters that you like that work for your donation, for your organization. Maybe I just want to go donor. There we go. So I've got 3 in this one, and I can see them in our data tab. So once you've done that, you'll be able to export your data. So you can export it by clicking on this icon here, no matter where you are. So if you're in here, save this, plus donor tag. If you're in a report, you'll always see it from the data tab. You can click on this export icon here. If you're in fundraising, in the transaction tab, you'll see it as well. So wherever you see this icon, it means that you can export from here. I'll jump back into reports, and let's start off with that 3 report here. I'll download it, so I can just click on that icon. If you have any of your custom exports set up, you can select them from here. Otherwise, you can just choose the columns that you want. So I'm going to choose donor, total amount, and date received. One thing to note about the donor column is it's actually a group of information. It's not just the full name of the donor, it includes some contact information for them as well. So while it might look as though you're only getting the full name, you're also going to get the address and the email address of the donor as well whenever you're exporting that. So one thing to keep in mind. If you want to save that to a custom export, you can. Otherwise, just click Next and Save, and your export will be processed. You can either view it by clicking on the export history here, or you'll notice that you get a little orange notification up here whenever that happens. So let's go back to, we'll go 2020. I think this will be better because we'll have more data. I've got 65 donations received in 2020. I'm going to export this. And this time I'm going to choose a pre-made template that I've created. And I'm going to click Next. And this time I'll call it Donations 2020 because I'm wanting to work with that report. I'll stop the video here. Once you've got your CSV, whether you've clicked on View Export History or you've downloaded it from here, skip ahead to the next step. Thanks. Okay, so you've exported your CSV file, you applied filters in Keela, you created a report, or you've just exported the data that you need. And now we're going to look at how you can get some donation totals and get a really succinct list using a really quick formula in Excel. So first, a couple of housekeeping things that I like to do. I sort of like to just stretch out my columns just so I can see what's going on. Now, remember if you watch my previous video, I mentioned that when you choose the donor column when you're exporting from Keela, it includes a couple of bits of information you might not need. So it looks at the donor's contact ID, full name, email, phone, and address data. So just pick and choose which bits and pieces you need. So I don't need this top row here, so I'm going to remove that. I'm going to remove contact ID. I don't need email address, but I do need phone number. I'm going to keep that. And perhaps I need address as well, so I might keep that. But I'll move those in so that they are a little bit more succinct. The next thing I'll do is I'm going to order my list in alphabetical order A to Z. Now you can skip this step, it's actually optional, but I feel like it just gives me a greater idea of how the formula is working and just lets me sort of see the pieces fall into place as it all unfolds. So I'm going to select the whole column by clicking on the A header here, and then just up here on the Home tab, click on Sort and Filter, and then Sort A to Z. Make sure that Expand the Selection is selected and then click Sort. Brilliant. So now you can see that I've got Atticus Finch, we've got Bam Bam Rubble, Barney Rubble, a couple of different contacts who had multiple donations, and I want to make sure that I get the totals for those. Over here, I've got a date received column and a total amount column, and this is the ones I'm wanting to add up. I'm wanting to see all of Atticus Finch's donations, all of Bam Bam's, so on and so forth. And this is where my formula comes into play. So I'm going to create a new column. I'll call it Total Donations 2020. And this is where I'm going to calculate my formula, or use Excel to calculate the totals and sort of end up with my final product. So in the first cell of this column, click here. Then up here beside the formula bar, just click on this FX button here, which means insert function. So click there. And then just make sure that SUMIF is selected. Here, click OK. Yours might look a little bit different. I'm using a PC, you might be on a Mac, but no matter what, when a pop-up appears, just make sure that SUMIF is selected. Now we get to choose sort of how this SUMIF formula is going to work. So we're going to do a little bit of kind of ordering about for the formula. The first question is the range. So Excel is asking us what range of data are we going to be looking at to do this SUMIF, to create the sum or to sum up all bits and pieces of information. And that's going to be column A. So click on the header of your donor full name column, wherever that might be, and just select that, because we're going to be looking at the names of folks. And whenever a name is the same, we want Excel to know that that's when they have to do some totaling, to add some adding up. The criteria is just going to be the first cell in there. So we're going to start with Atticus Finch as our criteria for this formula, and then we'll just click and drag and it'll automatically update for everybody else. And lastly, the sum range. So what are we going to actually be summing up? What information do we want to add together? And that's here, total amount. We're wanting to add up those donations. So I'll click OK. So now you can see that we've got Atticus Finch has contributed a total of $40 this year. And when I highlight all of Atticus Finch's donations, you can see that's correct, that it's automatically done there. So if you like, what you can do is highlight this and you can either click and drag so that the formula is brought down, or my colleague Laura taught me this the other day. If you want, you can highlight something and I'll just drag it down, double click on the little square here. And if you double click, it'll automatically fill up the entire spreadsheet, just like that. Like it'll sort of do the clicking and dragging for you. I thought that was really cool. So two options for that. But either way, what we want is for that formula to be down this whole column. Next step. Now that we've got a formula and we've done all those calculations, whenever I click on these cells, if you look up here in the formula bar, you'll see it's still technically a formula. So I'm not able to make any adjustments to this spreadsheet, to the numbers in this spreadsheet, because it'll affect that formula. I'll show you what I mean. If I delete that, it'll be removed from there. If I delete that, it'll be removed from there. And I do want to clean up this spreadsheet a little bit. So I'm going to do a thing where I copy all of the data in this column, but I paste only the values, so only the calculations, not the actual formula that we use to calculate it. Whoop. And definitely don't do what I just did and click on a formula and click somewhere else. Okay, so how do we do that? Let's highlight the whole column by clicking on K, or the number, the letter that's above. Right click to copy or press Control C. And then we're going to right click and we're going to paste it down. So I'm going to paste just the values. I don't want to paste the formula and I don't want to paste the data because that's going to include the formula. Just make sure you're pasting the values only. We'll select that. And now when I click on the cell, you can see up here that there's no formula. It's just the values only. Okay, so if you wanted, you could finish up here. You could say I've got the totals for everyone, but I like to take it one step further because it's a little annoying. You've got sort of multiple rows for everybody. It'd be nicer if it was a nice and a neat, concise list, if there was no double ups for folks who've made multiple donations. So what I'm going to do is delete this total amount column. I don't need it anymore. If I wanted to see the individual donations of everyone, I could have just kept this CSV file as it was. So now that I've got my total donations here, I'll delete that. I don't need the date received column anymore because I know that all of these donations came from 2020, or I know that they are all throughout a specific time period. So you can choose when you're filtering your data from Keela what time period to choose. If you want to keep it, that's completely fine. I'm going to remove it because I'm not looking at individual donations anymore. We've moved on to totals. I do want to keep the phone number and the address. Perhaps I want to send out a Christmas card, or maybe I want to give them a phone call if they're a major donor. So I'm going to keep that. Might come in useful later on if I want to hand this list off to some volunteers. But the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of any duplicates. So I'll highlight this, click on the Data tab, and just select Remove Duplicates. And this little window will appear. And you can, because they're all going to be the same, you can just click Remove. Or if you want to remove some bits of data but not others later on, you might find that you've only got full name and total donations if you've removed sort of mailing list from your spreadsheet, which is completely fine. As long as you've got donor full name and total donations selected, it'll be okay. But let's go here. Sorry, my box is a little small. There we go. I'll select OK, and what that's done is removed all the duplicates in my spreadsheet, and I'm only left with one row per contact who donated this year with their total donations in here. So perhaps you want to give this spreadsheet to your volunteers so that they can call and say thank you for your total donations of $40, or your lifetime donations have been this. You can take it really far. There's lots of different options. Maybe you want to only call those folks who have donated a specific amount. So you could go and sort this by largest to smallest. So you could start with your top donors at the top and work your way down. You could put some conditional formatting in here to only highlight those folks who've contributed a specific amount. Possibilities are endless, but this is sort of the base level. Feel free to add your own flair to it. Thanks so much. Happy calculating.